Thank you for watching Open Mic with Groove Kitty. We hope you enjoyed the episode. This podcast is for you, so please make sure you share, like, follow, and subscribe. When you do, it increases our exposure on every platform. This, in turn, helps to promote our guests. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. Thanks again. We'll see you all again soon. very
Here's a burning
inspirational.
question. Why didn't you jump up and give us a little serenade on Wednesday?
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good
That would have been a treat.
You know, I feel like because I only really sing the songs that I write.
That's not true.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well-
that's true. It's true.
Okay.
You sing covers with us all the time.
But not in like a performance
That's
setting.
fair, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
When you perform, do you ever do covers, or it's always your own stuff?
I am trying to do all my own stuff.
Yeah.
The only cover right now in the arsenal is a song from 1916.
Which one?
Oh wow!
That's the one of the songs we're gonna do today.
Oh, I feel like you also do Joey as well.
Oh, by Concrete Blonde.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, that's because that's a classic. that's a banger that what's the word?
Transcends.
Transcends the test of time.
True.
Because you strike me as a very old soul.
Thank you.
Like in the terms of like how you, the energy you give out. It's just not, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean like in a really good way. Like
No,
very, like I feel nostalgic just every time I talk to you, meet with you. Just I don't know why, but I feel like you've come from another time and you've sort of been dropped here,
Transcended.
transcended.
Oh, Scott. That is the greatest compliment I've received in so long.
Okay, so I have to ask this
Wow.
question because she got me hooked on this show. Have you ever watched Outlander?
Don't get me
Did you touch a
started.
stone and you like
Don't
ended
get
up?
me
What?
started.
Where are you really from? Shall I call you Claire Beecham?
Outlander is one of my comfort
Yeah, I was gonna
shows.
say.
Oh, okay.
I go back.
Oh.
Yeah.
I say it's
Yeah.
on our,
Season
on our
one
TV often.
specifically.
Well, I'm only on season 1 right now because she
Season one's
got
the
me
best.
started. Yeah.
We're binging.
That is
I'm
so
binging a
good.
second time.
And Outlander is one of those shows that's like pretty historically accurate, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like the only historical inaccuracies in like the clothing, which is like my thing, is like love historical clothing, you know. Is mainly just the fact that like when she gets married, she doesn't wear like what's called like a kerchief,
Okay.
and that's because it's not very sexy. Like Hollywood's like,
Yeah.
wearing a doily on your head is
Yeah.
not.
We need to
hot.
see Claire's hair.
Yeah, we need her beautiful raven hair. Like
Yeah.
we don't want her to wear like what women at the time would wear once they got married.
Yeah.
They cover their hair.
We don't stop at time travel. That's not the inaccurate part. Right?
Yeah, right. Like, but you know, so
The fact that you even know that though.
Well, it's funny you say that because did you ever watch like the Yellowstone series and the 1883 and all of that too?
Not yet.
No.
Okay. I shouldn't spoil it for you then, but
No.
there is something in 1883 that I couldn't get past. It was really well done, and the storytelling was quite good. But there was something, and I'm not going to say anything because maybe you'll come back and see if you catch it too. But there was something about similar to what you just talked about. That one of the main characters, the whole time I couldn't get past it because it wasn't 1883. It wasn't representative of it. So
that's
Anyway.
interesting.
I would say Meredith's usually just like picking out clothing for every show we watch. She's like, that's accurate. That's not accurate. That's accurate.
where
That's not accurate.
does that something like? How do you know all that? Is that something you've always been interested in?
I mean, I'm just a huge history person in general.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to be to like write a concept album about World War One.
Is that? Oh, that's fantastic.
That's a great lead in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
the project.
Yeah. Well, let's start there. Why World War One?
Wow, that's a good question. So, World War One, and originally called the Great War because
Mhm.
nobody knew it was gonna have a sequel, right? Like everybody was like, "This is the war that's gonna end all wars," and then like a few years later, womp womp, you know, not true. But World War One is really important, I think, to understanding where we are now, geopolitically, culturally, etc. And World War One has a lot of like really interesting parallels to the current day. So like, for example, the rise of technology that kind of threatens human existence. So World War One, we saw, you know, the emergence of tank warfare. We saw like mustard gas being developed. And we saw a lot of people saying like, hey, we need to be careful about developing technology that could wipe us off the face of the earth.
Right.
And you know, now we're talking about things like AI. We're talking about drones, all kinds of sophisticated weaponry, things that are being used for bad, right? And so it's kind of interesting to, yeah, exactly. It's interesting to like look back and say like we're not alone in the sense that people before us have gone through challenges as a society, as a culture, and people after us will, you know? And So I think World War One, more people need to know about it, and more people need to kind of study it and think about um, the fact that nothing is ever really new. So
Kind of repeating the cycle, but just with different stuff.
right, exactly. And I think that one of the biggest things that I like to hone in on is that suffering is like a universal human truth
Mm-hmm.
and always has been and always will be. And that's kind of like touching into like a Buddhist philosophy. But I think that sometimes we can feel a little bit better about our own lives by looking to people in the past and thinking about the fact that, we may dress differently than them, or if you're me, maybe not.
Yeah, there's exceptions.
We may like have different technology, and we may have different day-to-day issues, but at the end, like everybody experiences grief, everybody experiences
Yeah.
sorrow, heartbreak. There's universal human emotions that are love, right? Like there's all kinds of things that we go through and we're like, oh, nobody feels the same as I do. But in reality, if you study history, you'll be like, no, like this girl 100 years ago was also like broken up with, and that sucks too. So I'll probably live.
Yeah, and I think that's, we talk about shows like Outlander and entertainment in general, right, taps into that same thing. I mean, these are stories that we look at that it took place in 1743, but I can appreciate, I can empathize, I can go, that's why we get hooked on those things. So the big question is then why, after thousands, tens of thousands of years, we all have these same threads that bind us together, right? Why, after all this time, do we keep repeating the same things? Why do we keep getting into the same spot, do you think?
I think because we're all human.
Yeah.
I think it's just a part of being human, is shared experiences. And either of you can chime in on this if you want.
She's the historian.
I was gonna say.
Well,
the
I
same
mean,
thing.
I'm not the I'm not
The
the
authoritative.
authoritative authority. What am I trying to say? I mean, I was a history major in college,
That's what I was
so
getting
that's
at,
also
yeah.
part of it. And also,
It helps a little.
yeah, it helps a little, and also like, I mean, you know this, and you probably know this, but when I was a little girl, I was obsessed with history, and my first like historical obsession was the Titanic.
Yeah.
And
Still a thing.
true, well, James Cameron took some liberties that I'm not okay with, but
It's a good movie.
yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Nobody got locked below decks. That was all just to enhance kind of the visceral
Irish
reaction
suffering.
to the
Yeah.
film.
Pain and
Um,
suffering.
There's no recorded evidence that anybody got locked below decks, because that's also like a big violation of like all seafaring notions of decency. Anyways, yeah. So when I was a little girl, I loved the Titanic.
Yeah.
And my parents were super supportive. They were like, hell yeah, she loves the Titanic. Like, we're going to take her to the library. We're going to get some books. We're going to, like, take her to the traveling exhibit that came into town with all the artifacts and stuff. So they were, like, super supportive. And I think they were also kind of like, you know what? Our 8-year-old is obsessed with this seafaring disaster, but, at least it's not drugs. So.
Now, did they come from that world too, or were you just your own history was your own thing?
I mean, well, so both my parents were very erudite, I would say. I mean, my mom is a middle school teacher and loves being a middle school teacher, and has always loved to read. And my father was like super into learning. I mean, they're both like huge on learning. They're like, learn everything you can, read books, expose yourself to all different kinds of ideas. Yeah, and so I just grew up in a household where we were always talking about stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Matters.
Yeah.
And brothers and sisters also, or no?
My sister, yes, and my sister actually passed away when I was 7, and she was 9 years old, and she passed away really suddenly.
What happened, if I can ask?
Oh yeah. So she had what's called an arterial ventricular malformation, and I probably butchered that, but basically what happened is that in utero, the veins and arteries in the back of her head had malformed, and it was such that as she continued growing, it eventually placed way too much stress on that network
Mm.
and caused like a bleed, like a massive hemorrhage. All of a sudden, we had no warning. She had never experienced anything that would indicate such a condition.
I was gonna say you weren't even aware of the condition then until after the fact.
Correct. Like we did not
Wow.
know until
Okay.
after she died,
Yeah.
like that this existed or what happened, and very like tragic and very sudden for our family,
Yeah.
and we were just like in a tailspin. So after that, it was me and my mom and my dad,
Mm.
and I think that kind of like is what kept us in the mind space of like growing and learning and talking about all kinds of concepts because we had to go through. And I mean, I was 7, and I remember saying to my parents like, well, why do some people die young and why do some people live? And I mean, how do you answer that as a parent?
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
you have to get, and my parents are so progressive and forward thinking. And they were like, well, you know, like there's really no answer, and we can talk about that, and we can talk about how many different people would answer that differently,
Mm.
right? So
See, I find that really liberating. And I think, again, one of the reasons when we first met that I felt a natural energy connection with you is that idea that there aren't always answers. I'm a huge proponent of that. Lisa's the same way. It's always a matter of asking questions, right? I don't, I won't ever know everything. I probably won't ever know a whole lot of anything. But if you're open to ask all the questions, then maybe you're open to hearing a lot of different thoughts and ideas. And I kind of always got that feeling from you right from the get-go. And it's interesting to hear this now and to hear you talk about your upbringing and how your parents kind of fostered that. Rather than saying, you know, when you're a young girl, this is the way it is, which was kind of how I was raised. You ask a question, they had the answer. Because I think in their generation, it was important to feel, not to feel, it was important to show that you did know what was going on. Because I think they would have felt, I don't want to say underconfident, but the job of the parent was to know. And as I got older and started to realize that there were different answers, it was kind of a blow to me because I did think of my parents as they must know everything than my parents, right? And when I discovered that wasn't the case, it was a hard transformation to me to come out of. So I'm really fascinated by the fact that you were raised quite differently, and that right from the get-go, it seems anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like they were open to talking about anything early on with you and not just being an authority on the subject. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so I was raised Unitarian Universalist. If you know what that is, it's like a very crunchy granola um organized religion, and it like when I say crunchy granola, it is like really like everybody love each other, and like we're all going to learn from other religions, and we're all going to like explore big concepts together and stuff like that. Um so that was very much always like the worldview in my house was
Yeah.
like we're going to learn about like every religion, we're going to talk about it, like we're going to really like you can figure it out for yourself. Like my parents are like, I don't care what you do as long as you're a good person, like maybe don't go murder people and shoot up drugs in the street, you know? And I was like, I like the Titanic, so I don't think that's an issue.
Well, I think it also kind of helped that your dad and now us as well are kind of really into reading about Zen Buddhism with respect to the teachings. We have a lot of the same books that our dad passed down to us, and it's just one of those things like you were just talking about, where it's like a constant strive to maybe there isn't an answer.
Yeah.
Maybe we should ask the questions, but kind of be aware there may not be an answer, and that's part of the search for learning, like trying to figure it out yourself through experiences, through.
And that's kind of a core of Buddhism, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, I mean and so from your upbringing, was that a similar upbringing for you, or?
Very much not. I was I was raised in a very like Roman Catholic style household,
Yeah.
kind of Irish Catholic, but a little different than her upbringing, with the sense that kind of went along with the more conservative Catholic mindset in the household. And not that it was a bad upbringing; I had a great upbringing, but just a different way to learn, and then kind of transfer into how her and I live now, essentially.
Yeah, because I grew up similar to you, and I think the best way I can put it is very concrete.
Correct. Yeah.
It wasn't malleable, right?
Yep.
Not bad, not vicious, but very. It just didn't have no wiggle room.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
at what
so-
point did you kind of, like I was saying before, as I started getting older and started I've always been very curious, and as I started reading and talking to people, I realized there was something more than what I believed. When did that happen for you?
So like we talked a little bit before this started, I was in the Navy for about 8 years, and I had the chance in my young 18 to 22-year-old span of my life to get to go do a lot of deployments across the Pacific. And while I did that, I took advantage of a lot of the great opportunities that was kind of provided by them with regards to trips. So the Navy would set up trips for you. So I spent a lot of time exploring temples, Buddhist temples, Hindu temples, things like that across the Asia Pacific area. And it kind of opened up my mindset into other possibilities and other ways to think about life. Because when you go to these other cultures, in like psychology, they have the principles of like individualistic versus collectivist mindsets, right? So just going to see other collectivist cultures, and seeing how they act, seeing how they interact, and kind of noticing stark differences between how people in Japan act versus how people in America act, like things like that, right? So that kind of opened up my kind of eagerness to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and learn about what sparks other mindsets, and typically. Religion is one of those things that typically sparks a lot of mindsets across cultures, whether that be you practice or not. Your culture is still heavily influenced by some type of religion. So just kind of going into that realm is what kind of made me want to start reading about Buddhism. Not that we practice, but it's
Right.
just we have a lot of books on the topic, and we typically talk about these ideas at home, and just a great back and forth conversation, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I don't know a lot about. I'm certainly not to the level that you guys understand it, but just from the little I've done, I've always same thing. I'm interested in all different ideas, religions, ideologies, etc. And one of the things I've kind of always been attracted to about Buddhism at the surface level was it seemed to me, and again, you guys will tell me if I'm wrong, it seemed to me that it was very much about the search, right?
Correct. Yep.
And not about the answer.
Not that I'm an expert, but yes,
Okay.
I think I would agree with that. That's kind of what I take out of it as well. It's not there is no direct answers, or there doesn't need to be. And the fact that some people look for a direct answer all the time is it might be what leads to a lot of frustration in the world. But
I think there's a great way to put it is that doesn't need to be. That's
Correct.
the part to me that was sort of always resonated was we're always in search our whole life of finding the answer to whatever it is. How do I fix this widget? To life, what's the answer? And that idea that there doesn't need to be an answer, I always found kind of refreshing.
yes, yeah, that's the same thing. I've kind of same pieces. I think not to speak for you. You can chime in at any point. But I think that's kind of
After 10 years of marriage, I'm surprised you got this far.
I'm surprised she hasn't stopped me yet.
No, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. You're very what's the word? You're very insightful, I think. And I think one of the things I admire
Shucks.
about you is that like when I first met you, you were still very much in the mode of how you were raised, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I've just seen this incredible growth in you and like willingness to think about things differently, and we just have really good conversations about all kinds of really hard topics, and I think that's awesome. And I mean, you've been able to support me in my life, and you know, and my mom too, which Ryan and my mom are like super close. He's like the son she never had. He like comes to my mom's house and like is the most spoiled person in the room.
Kind of revert back a little bit,
He does, yeah. Well, because Ryan's one of 4 children, so and he's the baby, and so like he comes to my mom's house, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Ryan, like let me make you a sandwich. Let me tuck your little feeties in, like."
And that's not our household. So it's just like
Yeah,
I'm like,
And also like my grandmother lives with my mother. My grandmother is almost 94. Is doing super well, like has always been a really active person, former pro tennis player. And she's just like zooming around the house, and she's like, "Ryan, do you need a sandwich? Do you need something to eat?" And I'm like,
And the
"No."
answer is always yes.
yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
One time she like looked at me, she's like, "Meredith, it's been 30 minutes since that boy's eaten something." And I was like, "What the hell?"
And I milk it on my end. So I'm like, yeah, Meredith, I might be
yeah.
able to use a sandwich. Yeah.
And my neck is a little sore too.
A
Maybe
little
a little.
peckish.
Right?
Just
So,
get
like,
dagger shot at you after you leave. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But
It was-
I'm very grateful because you were very close to my mom, and whenever we go home to see her, it's always a lovely time. So
Where's your mom live?
Houston. So
Oh, so
I'm from Houston,
that was my next
Texas.
question. Yeah. Okay. You lived in Houston for some time. You guys can talk some Houston talk.
Where in
we
Houston?
can talk some heat.
Yeah, where'd you live?
I lived up near the Woodlands.
Oh,
Like
I love
vanilla,
that.
so vanilla.
Yeah,
Um,
that's where his
Yep.
aunt lives.
Yeah. You know, a little thread that I'm seeing between you, which is pretty fascinating to me. And we've had these conversations almost ad nauseum, but it's just a natural curiosity, right? And how you were raised, but then how it sounds like what you were exposed to. So, my burning question for you is, did you meet the Dalai Lama?
Did not know.
Ah, dang. Yeah, it's on my bucket list.
None of that epicness, but
Yeah.
yeah, I got to go to see some pretty amazing temples, but no, never that cool.
Yeah. But I respect that natural curiosity the energy that I'm feeling from you. Really
Oh,
respect
thank
that.
you.
I think we all need to be a little more naturally curious in life.
I think like the concept
And
of
avoid
being,
wars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or something silly like that, right?
The concept of being a lifelong learner, I think, really appeals to me, and I think it appeals to you too.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I'm always either reading, torturing myself by going back to school, or listening to podcasts in the car. So,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
audiobooks. I'm just like always listening to something.
Well, I'm a huge believer, and I talk about this ad nauseum. I'm sure people get sick of hearing it, but I'm a huge believer in the idea that what I believe today is only what I believe based on the knowledge I have now.
Correct. Yeah.
I am not my ideas. My ideas are just where I am in this moment. And in 5 minutes, that could change because I might learn something new that I didn't know before. And I try really hard. And it took me a while to get there because, again, I kind of grew up in this world of once you know something, you know it. And you don't change your mind. That's flip-flopping. And I realized how dumb I was for thinking that. And so I try really hard to really maintain that. Even things that you believe at your core, when you hear something opposite of that, your first instinct is to defend what you believe. And one of the reasons, I sent you guys the sort of the prep sheet that we use here. We say everything's on the table except politics. Because I think people get so wrapped up into the idea that I must defend my political idea, and those aren't the kind of conversations that are interesting to me. Now, I am interested in talking politics offline with people because when you can be just comfortable and just share ideas. Because how else do we progress in our own thinking? How else do we learn? If I'm at almost 60, thinking the same way I did at 14, there's something wrong. I haven't learned shit, right?
Yep.
You mean you haven't emotionally matured yet?
Exactly. Well, that too.
Then there's that.
I will say I'm not sure I've emotionally matured much from 14.
Whole nother podcast.
As you can see, exactly. As you can see by sort of, some of the outlandish things I wear and the way I act sometimes.
I don't know, Scott. You have a great youthful spirit and in a very positive way. Like when you ran a lap around New Realm the other day during the open or the jam.
Yeah.
You just took off, and I was like, oh, he's going on a lap. He's doing it. He's in a suit. He's running around. He's going to make the lap. I was like, I respect
And
that.
you know what? That was a tricky one because I had to get back on mic just on time to pick up that next verse, and I wasn't sure I was going to make it.
No, I was like,
You were committed at that point.
he's a runner. He's a track star. He is going for it. He's got a spring in his step.
But to your point, remaining youthful, but also being emotionally mature enough to accept, maybe not accept, but listen to and think about someone else's opinion, right? Like you don't need to automatically get triggered straight to anger, right? You could just okay, well, why? Maybe, and then think about it, ponder it. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it is, but it doesn't need to be spark anger, or
Right,
I need to
right.
defend myself. It's not a personal attack on you, and understanding that as you go through life also helps you learn.
Yeah, and I think for some reason we're kind of conditioned that if we hear something that's contrary to what we think, we're conditioned to believe that there's something wrong with us for being wrong.
Correct. Yeah.
And I just know personally it was a hard habit to break because the first words out of my mouth were typically to try to defend what I thought until I kind of realized how foolish that was. And now I don't always succeed, but I try to make the first words out of my mouth, tell me more, rather than, no, you're wrong because, or, oh, I think this.
Remaining inquisitive is one of the best ways to learn. So.
Yeah, and it's super hard and takes dedication. But in the end, I think it's so
We're working on this.
Yeah.
We all are.
It's very liberating, right? It's very liberating because suddenly you feel like I'm not nailed down to anything. And that's kind of a fun way to, for me, it's a fun way to go through life.
It's been stated probably multiple times by multiple people, but I think it's like the minute you stop searching for opportunities to learn and grow, it's kind of like, why at that point? It's
Yeah.
like, what am I doing?
Might as well
You know?
be flatline.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing.
Yeah, it's
you
like, at
know?
what point
Yeah.
are you happy that you're no longer learning? Or like, it's just kind of something I never want to have happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important to keeping our brains active and as we grow older. Like I think that's the people in my world who have aged well are the people who continue using their brains in kind of ways that push themselves, if that makes sense.
Well,
Um,
interestingly enough, about a month or two ago, do you know who Andrew Huberman is?
no.
You probably love him. He's a neuroscientist. He's got a great podcast. And
Podcast.
just look up Andrew
That name
Huberman.
sounds super familiar.
Yeah, I don't know the name of his podcast, and he was talking about precisely, well, that in sort of a different way. He was talking about how they measured when people put themselves in uncomfortable positions, whether physically, emotionally, whatever it is. It triggers the part of your brain that is the same part that sort of opens up open-mindedness or wide thinking versus narrow thinking. And the belief is that people who question themselves, people who do things that they don't like doing, even if it's physical, like sauna, cold plunge, things like that, trigger that part of the brain that allows you to be more open-minded and inquisitive. And I thought that was really interesting. They're tying that to sort of the aging process, where people who do that tend to stay sort of cognizantly, more cognizant in their later years, like kind of like your grandmother you're talking about.
Yeah.
What was that? I think you and I were talking the other day, and I think I said, but uncomfortable situations often lead to comfortable outcomes.
That's so true.
It's kind of like what you're
Yeah,
saying, right?
That's cool. I like that.
And that's like so. I mean, I feel like you've seen me go through this because I'm currently working on being comfortable performing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And like as you know, violin's my primary instrument. Played violin since I was 4 years old. You cannot put me in a situation with a violin where I'm not comfortable.
Right.
On stage or off. Like it is just like an extension of my being at this point. So it's been a whole new world for me to be learning guitar and like not even anything fancy, but just like strumming some chords
Yeah.
while I sing, right? And Dom, you can also speak to this because you've been working with me on this. And it's been like such an interesting position because I feel like I'm like 4 years old again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is like how it felt to be 4 years old and to be learning violin for the first time and going on stage for the first time and being like, this does not feel natural.
Yeah.
This feels very new.
I think it's very weird from me watching that happen because I have seen you play violin and sing live, and you are just like completely confident. You have no issues with it. And like yesterday or when we were practicing, you were like, I don't know how to play guitar. Like I'm blah blah blah. Like you're
So
great at
true.
it. You're a phenomenal musician. Like
That's so true.
you,
Well,
you
not
have
the,
you have the confidence in other aspects, and it's interesting to see like the juxtaposition when you're like playing something brand new to you at
I
least.
figured that you
Right.
would be like the best person to speak on that, honestly, because like you've been supporting me, and Dom is a fantastic drummer and has so much experience, and Dom is originally from Hawaii,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, mhm.
yeah, and he was on the drum line at University of Hawaii, and so he has tons of wonderful experience, and was also in a Rage Against the Machine cover band.
Oh.
And Kings of Leon, right?
Yes, yeah, for
Yeah.
a short while, yeah.
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 One of them was called Free Pizza, right?
Yes, yeah, that was the
And that's
Rage
how
Against the
you-
Machine cover band.
That's how
yeah.
you advertised, is you
Pizza,
put
yeah.
Free
I
Pizza.
have someone to turn you on to. A very good friend of mine was
Okay.
in a rage cover band called Age Against the Machine.
Oh, that's
Out of
so
Boston.
That's
cool.
great. That's great.
And this guy's probably one of the 10 best guitar players in the world.
Oh wow. Okay.
This guy is
All
just
right.
off the charts good. I'll after when we get down, I'll send you his info.
Cool.
That's
Awesome.
super cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, so as a drummer, it's been like really cool because I mean I've played music with you for a really long time,
Right.
like all
Mhm.
three of us have. But this endeavor of me playing guitar
Mhm.
while you play drums has been so interesting for me because
It's been fun.
I'm just like, I can't let Dom down. Like, homie is holding it down over there with the rhythm section. He is subdividing to save his little heart. Like, and I am like working on it. I'm trying to count 8 notes in my head.
I've worked with musicians at like various levels throughout my like drumming career. I've taught drummers like in like a high school situation where when I was in college. I went back to my high school and other high schools where they were asking me to help them, and like working with young musicians or like some that aren't as confident as they could be. Like there's a way to kind of interact with that to make them not feel like they're
You do that to me?
no.
He's like, no.
Never.
I wouldn't mind if you did.
Never.
I thought he was using that as an example.
No, I thought you were gonna say like how you do it, and then be like, and that's what I do with you,
Well, so
Meredith.
I think there's just like good experience in like and this applies outside of music as well. But when you're interacting with somebody who's doing something brand new, if you make a big deal out of it, it's gonna draw attention to themselves about that. They're gonna become like self-conscious about it. Where if you just roll with it,
That's very astute, and I'm gonna be thinking of that now every time we were.
Yeah, now you've screwed everything up because now you planted that
Dang it.
seed.
You gave away your
Right.
trade
Yeah.
secret.
That's awesome though. But I mean,
Meredith's used to strict violin upbringing.
well, I will
Super
say,
strict teachers.
I will say that it is impossible to offend me by giving me notes when I perform music. Like somebody could say like, "Hey, that was kind of ass," and I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah."
there's always
What specifically?
there's always
was-
room for brutal honesty.
Right. And then, I mean, I grew up being screamed at by orchestra conductors. I mean, in ways that now I know were not okay.
Yeah.
And in ways that now I'd be like, hell no, you're not going to yell at me like that.
Violin whiplash.
Yeah, like I'm
Oh
like,
yeah, that movie was crazy.
Yeah, really.
like it was insane. And like, so I was always in orchestra growing up, and like conductors back then, and probably still now, because it's just like part of the classical world. I think they thought that it was okay to scream and be like verbally abusive to get the results they wanted, and all that did was make everybody incredibly anxious.
Yeah.
So we'd all be like,
Anxiety makes great music, right?
right?
Well,
So
and that's really what makes it really interesting. One of the things that was interested me about you is because of what you do now with the violin. It's correct me if I'm wrong. You come from a background of real classical training. It is very rigid. You've got to hit what you've got to hit, and you've got to hit it right, and it can't be wrong, and there's no room for interpretation anywhere. But what you do is completely different. You take something that's very interpretive. And I don't meet a lot of people that come from a very strict world and move into an open, creative world. They usually stay in that world. They stay in the orchestral world forever, or they start off in the world where I just made fucking noise on this thing and there are no rules, and I stayed that way. Talk a little bit about, was there a transformation that did it happen? Do you sort of remember that process of going from something so strict to something so creative?
yeah, so I have always had a wild streak. Everybody in my family will agree with that.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, I mean,
Because you could see Meredith's like home videos, which her mom showed me, and she's up there, and when they're learning violin, they're all going the same direction, and she's up there going the opposite direction, and you can see it in her face that she's just like doing it
By
because
design.
she's
like
like,
right
I'm
now?
doing it, yeah. And it was hilarious to watch because I'm like, yeah, that's Meredith. Like,
yeah, so I mean, and like, don't get me wrong, I love classical music. It's still like so important to me, and I listen to it a lot. But when I was growing up, I always would use my ear to play the things I actually wanted to play. So I'd be practicing all my classical pieces at home, and then I'd be like, I'm kind of tired of this, and then I would play like the Irish washerwoman. That's like one of the things that I picked up quickly when I was little. And I always like love to use my ear to be like, oh, I heard this the other day. I'm gonna just do it. And the funny thing is that my classical teachers were like, don't do that. Like maybe like hold off a little bit because you're gonna like learn things wrong. But then on the other hand, like my parents at home were like, no, do it. Like
Okay.
like if this keeps you interested and engaged in learning this instrument, then like while you're practicing your stuff, like yes, practice, but also like you need to noodle around for a bit, like just noodle around, like you need to play like Pirates of the Caribbean because like that came out when I was like what 6, 7 learning violin, and I remember hearing it and being like, oh, this is like so much fun. I could totally recreate this. Yeah. So my parents were like, yeah, you can do that. Like if you keep practicing, like if that keeps you in love
Interested.
with the violin, then do it, girl. Like it's so I think that's kind of the gateway drug for getting me into like other types of music. And basically as I grew up when I was in high school, I was like, it would be cool to play music other than classical music. And like all throughout this time, whenever I performed for my family, because like that's a thing, like my family would be like, we're all gonna sit in the living room and listen to Meredith play the violin.
And that still continues now. Meredith and I provide our family's entertainment each year. I feel like it's like it's like you will do it. It's like one of those things. Like, all right, guys,
If you want another sandwich,
yep, get your instruments. Let's go.
Yeah,
So
it's-
we have our giant Thanksgiving every year that we go to, and it's always like it's expected. Like you guys
Yeah.
bring your instruments, you will play.
it really is like a dance, monkey dance. kind
Correct,
of
yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
so.
Scott and I are available for an
Yeah.
invite to that jam session.
We will probably host a Thanksgiving in the next few years, and you are welcome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I'm in.
They're really large gatherings.
But yeah, that's like what got me really into it is that like all throughout my youth, and my parents had me perform for family because they were like, this will keep her from developing anxiety about performing.
Yeah.
So it was like perform for your grandparents and for your extended family, and then once you get to the recital, it'll just feel like you're like in a living room, like hanging out with people, playing music. So
And did you like that? Is like when they asked you to do that, were you okay with that, or did you feel like, I don't want to feel like a monkey, like you said before?
well, when I was really little, I didn't know any better.
Yeah, yeah,
So I was like, and also, I mean, my parents, like, I love attention.
yeah.
I'll be brutally honest about it, and they will like, he's laughing because he knows
Ain't
it's
nothing
true.
wrong with that. Yeah,
So they were like, well, she loves attention. The grandparents love to hear a Shogun farewell from Ken Burns' The Civil War. Let's marry those ideas.
yeah.
And I say a Shogun farewell because that's like the #1 requested
Really.
piece.
She plays it very beautifully.
Scott, I'm envisioning a podcast 2.0 with this girl
Oh, I was thinking 2.0
Yeah.
or 3.0.
with
4.0.
parents. I think the parents need to.
I have questions.
along?
I have. I'm.
Pat would love that.
Sound fantastic.
Yeah, they sound like I really want to. You're exactly right. As you're talking about this, I'm thinking to myself, man, they just fucking did everything right.
Yeah.
Seems like it. They fostered all the right things in the right way, and had enough foresight to tap into the fact that, okay, she's very young now. She likes a little attention. We can sort of gently slide her into this without pressuring it. Like, okay, you must get up there and do right. And even I've talked to so many musicians who to this day, and they're masterful musicians on other instruments, to this day they will not go near a piano. Because when they grew up, it was book one, it was all these things, it was rigid, they hated it, they wanted to play, the theme from Batman or whatever. No, you can't do it, you must go through and learn the scales and play this and go from book one to book two. And they just got turned off by it because they were creative people and just wanted to make noise. And the fact that your parents had the foresight to allow that flexibility in a rigid type of instrument, typically, just, I think, fostered something really interesting and really cool. And rather than turning you off, actually turned you more onto the instrument.
Yeah, and I feel like they also really tried to be like, hey, here's some examples of people using violin in non-traditional ways.
Uh-huh.
So they would just try and like soundtracks, right? So like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Folk music, right? Like anytime there was any kind of music that had a string instrument like violin or like an orchestral section, they would be like, we should listen to this. Like we should look into this. We should expose her to this, so that she knows that it's out there and that you can do different things. And then I mainly played at home, like all throughout college and stuff. And then we moved to Charleston.
When did that? How old are you when that happened?
how old was I when we moved to Charleston? Well, we had already
Go,
gotten
go
married.
back 5 years.
Yeah, so
Oh,
5
okay.
years
So
ago.
this is when you're an adult. You moved here.
Right. I
Okay.
had just started law school in Virginia, but we lived in Charleston because his job was in Charleston. So I was basically living like half here and half in Virginia in law school. And yeah, where was I going? Oh, yeah. And so I just like started thinking, what if I started really performing again with violin? It was kind of like not satisfying to just be in our house, me playing kind of, So I went on the Charleston musicians group on Facebook and was like, "Hi, my name is Meredith. Like, if anyone wants to play music with me."
And it worked.
It did. And several people hit me up. One of them was Rob Lowe, actually.
Oh, Rob. Yeah, we love Rob.
Yeah, he was one of the first people I met.
Rob's podcast, his band's podcast launches tomorrow at noontime.
Ooh,
Super
very
fun.
exciting.
Super fun, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that they were doing that. So he was one of the first people to hit me up and to give me a chance because a lot of people like heard that I had a classical background and they like ran for the hills, Like they were like this girl can't hang. We're not going to do this. But Rob actually gave me a chance and that was really nice. And he, because of what he does and like the blues stuff, which like I enjoy blues. It's not my favorite, but I enjoy it. It's a really nice space to be able to learn how to improvise and how to do some more creative stuff because you don't have a part written out for you. You're just like, I'm going to make my own part. So that was really helpful. And then like I met one of my best friends who, his name is Gideon Besson, and he is a singer-songwriter, and he is just like an incredible human being. And you would never think that we are like best friends because Gideon is in his 60s and he's like a retired doctor and we have just become like absolute best friends.
That's great.
We have so much in common. Like we hang out all the time. He writes some really amazing music that's incredibly poignant.
Yeah, he's a great musician himself. It's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. We all all three of us kind of with our we all kind of play get together and just kind of play music. It's fun.
Yeah, we have joint custody of Gideon.
How would you describe his genre?
Ooh, y'all are gonna have to help me out with this one.
Yeah, go right ahead.
He does like singer-songwriter folk.
That's
His-
probably the best generalized version of his music, but he's kind of a free spirit with it too, though.
Yeah, he reminds me of Joni Mitchell in a way. I say that in a really positive way.
That
like
surprises me. I don't see that, but
Joni Mitchell, maybe some John Prine
I could see John
Okay.
Prine, yeah.
kind of vibes.
Yeah, not
Whoa.
that far off, the two of them from each other. Sort of that
Right.
folk, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful boy.
He needed more attention.
Sorry, I'm in love.
Movement
He
in
never
the room.
gets he never gets any attention.
I
Actually
am-
the star of the
I'm
show.
in love with him.
Yes.
I have been staring down watching him this whole time.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
it's like he raised up his ass and puts it down again. Yeah, that's
Right.
kind of his thing.
Yeah.
He's a lovely Frito smell.
He's being dog.
I love when dogs smell like Fritos.
We'll have to bring him to one of the New Realm open jams one time where we can bring the dogs.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
we need to do "We Are the World" at the end of one of them.
Well, Rob was talking about that. Did you see that
Yeah.
thread about
yeah,
doing
because
that?
I told Rob last
Oh,
time.
you were
I
the
was
one?
Like, Rob, what if we all got on stage and we're like, "We are the world"?
That would be pretty cool.
I said I was totally down as long as I get the Bob Dylan part.
Oh, I was
All I want is the Dylan part, and I'm in.
As long as I can be Michael Jackson and be like looking around like side eye, like how he does in the. He's like,
Did you see the documentary on that? Oh, it's
No.
fascinating. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. We can look it up afterwards, but there's a documentary about the making of that. Really good because you get insight into all that, what you're talking about. And sort of even how they pulled it off was fairly remarkable. It's sort of ad hoc, somewhat last minute, pulling people in after they'd, like Lionel Richie just finished, he was one of the drivers of it, had just finished doing a show and then like went over to the studio to kind of coordinate it and the drama that was happening and who didn't want to stick around. All of it's really interesting. Just a really good documentary.
Probably really hard to get that many musicians in the same place at
You
the
mean
same
type
time.
A
Herding.
personalities.
Right, yeah.
And it's like herding cats.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like logistically difficult, emotionally difficult. That's just
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a lot of tempers to
Right,
manage.
Yeah.
right.
A lot of creatives.
Yep, and you can imagine, starting at 10 o'clock at night and like going till 6 o'clock in the morning, and people sitting around for hours on end. And when am I doing this, and when am I not doing this? And get to your point, a lot of creators about who's getting what part, and
Egos, maybe.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
egos, and it was really, but at the same time, extraordinarily collaborative in other ways. So it was really kind of an interesting dichotomy of the two worlds coming together, and just the fact that they pulled it off is phenomenal. I mean, but yeah, I'm totally down for doing that. That would be super fun. So okay, so were you in Houston too? Is that where you guys met? How did you guys?
So we actually met. She's best friends with my cousin.
Okay.
So
Be careful throwing the word cousin out there.
I have been working out which
This is South
order to put that
Carolina.
in there. So usually I'll start with like a.
She's my cousin.
Usually I start with she's my cousin's, and everyone's
And my girlfriend.
like best friend. So now I'm starting with the best friend of my cousin. That's a better way to say it.
Okay.
So my cousin brought her to a Thanksgiving actually, and I was in between my transfer from San Diego. I was on my way to Florida to go to school, and then heading up to Washington after that. So I met her going through, stopping at a Thanksgiving. So just by chance.
Yeah. And I was at this Thanksgiving because my father had just passed away. So it was like I needed some community. My mom and I needed to be with our friends. So
10 years
And then you
ago,
met me.
right? 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
And that was in Houston. Sorry.
I was in the Woodlands technically.
Okay, so that
so
area
yeah,
though.
like Houston adjacent.
So is that you were kind of passing through? You said, right? You decide, okay, I got to stay here because
So I was
think
always
very carefully about your answer. Here.
Yeah, I got to be my toes. No, so I was very close with, or I still am. I am very close with it. My uncle, who lives in the Woodlands, actually, he got me into most of the things I'm interested in these days: music, guitars, BMWs. But he kind of got me into all of that, and I spent a lot of time at their other house during the summers. Because I have, like I said, my cousins are very close to me in age, so I would just go there and hang out with my cousins throughout the summer. So I was actually stopping through, and I asked if I could stay at their house for 4 or 5 days on my way between, just to see them. So it was just one of those moments where I was there, and then we had Thanksgiving there that year, so it was just like a perfect stop.
Yeah. So it was just like the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And then
Synchronistic.
I remember walking in being like, oh, Bella's cousin's kind of hot.
That was a pre-beard, very short hair.
No. I was like, oh, he's kind of cute.
And then you found out he played the guitar too.
Yeah. And then he found out I played the violin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Oh.
My great aunt actually kind of like sold the idea of her to me while I was in the car. They picked me up at the airport, and they're like, "There's this really cute redhead who plays violin at the house. It's one of Bella's friends." And I was like, "Ooh." So it was kind of funny.
Woof. An arranged marriage.
Pretty much, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, but I remember we played music together. Like, I think it was the next day or something, because you had your guitar because you were moving, and I had my violin. I don't know, because everybody makes me bring my violin everywhere.
Play for me.
Dance, monkey, dance. So, and I remember we played. What was that song? Oh, it was by Iron and Wine. It was used in the Twilight Saga.
I can't remember the name of that song. Flightless Bird.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very beautiful song, and I played the violin part, and you played the guitar part. We didn't practice, and it was like awesome.
Yeah.
And then you just knew.
Yep.
Yeah,
Music
yeah.
chemistry. It tells you something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, at what point did you kind of decide? Because you had said before that I wanted to take this back onto stage again. I want to come up with a project. I want to do something. It was like, how long ago now? Like 5 years ago, did you say?
Well, so 5 years ago is when I decided I wanted to get back out there performing and stuff.
Yeah.
Then the current project, the World War I project, which somebody once said to me, you should call that project the Great Warble. Yeah, as a weird combine the singing aspect and the fact that it's the Great War. I thought of that like my last year of law school, and I'm kind of nocturnal. Like Ryan will tell you, like I love to be awake at night, and I get like the creative zoomies at night. So like we have dogs. Our dogs get the zoomies, and I get the creative zoomies at night. So like I'll just be like lying there in bed, and I'll be like, I should write a song about mustard gas.
Or the Spanish flu.
Oh yeah,
or,
I have
you
a
know,
song coming up about the Spanish flu. That's gonna be really.
Sounds a little dark, Meredith.
It's dark, but it's also a metaphor for falling in love.
Oh.
Okay.
The Spanish flu one. or-
Let me
Oh.
hear you make. Let me hear you make that connection. I gotta hear it.
Yeah.
This is the
We
first
have
word
a
for me.
natural curiosity about
Yes.
this now.
Yeah, you've definitely piqued my interest.
Well, the Spanish flu song, and like I will say, the whole project has started leaning in an interesting like quasi punk direction. Because there's a lot of like sing speaking. Is that how I should put it? Is that
That's the way to put it.
like there's some parts where I'm kind of singing, I'm kind of talking, and so the Spanish flu song is like something you could probably dance to, but it's like a metaphor. There are parts of it where I'm talking about like having a fever and being in love is like a fever, and all those really really easy to grab at cliches that we love in a love song, right? But then it's like talking about the Spanish flu, and there's this line that's like, "It seems you've hit me like the," and there's a pause, and it's like Spanish flu, which you're gonna get to work with me on this in a few weeks,
I'm excited.
and I feel
Done.
like I've sent this to you before.
We've sort of collaborated on it already.
Because I love to send you like
Right.
these audios that are just unhinged at like 11 p.m. and it's like concept idea for Spanish flu song, and then it's just like me hopping around doing weird guitar stuff, and I'm like, do you see the vision?
But with Meredith being the night owl there, it's always like I'll be sitting there and either reading or watching something at like 10 p.m. and you'll hear the guitar start going off.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
like, creative zoomy time.
You know,
Well, the other day our grandfather clock, because we love antiques. That's like another.
that really
thing.
surprises me.
What gave it away?
That's one of our things we love to do is go antiquing, and our house looks like honestly, it looks like kind of a Gothic castle at this point.
What she's trying to get out of it.
Yeah, it's like beautiful and dark and Victorian, and we have a grandfather clock that we got for free like 2 months ago because somebody in our neighborhood group chat was like, I got this grandfather clock at an estate sale. I absolutely hate it. The ticking noise drives me nuts.
Why'd you buy a grandfather clock?
Yeah.
And I saw
Kind of
that,
the main feature.
and
Yes.
Ryan and I, like, we
Feet don't fail me now.
yeah, we literally like we turned on the couch and we were like, get the dolly. We zoomed across the street. We set up that clock, and now it's so beautiful. Makes a beautiful chiming sound. But the other day, it chimed out 11 times, and I was like, 11 chimes for the 11th day of the 11th month at the 11th hour? Armistice Day.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a song about Armistice Day.
And that's how it happens.
And that's another one that's in the works.
Yeah.
Song about Armistice Day.
Is it a cuckoo clock?
No, I wish.
Oh,
That would be a little more
man.
fun.
It is a little cuckoo. But
Lisa, now you've just added a new antique
I
item to the
know.
list.
Yeah.
Whole new conversation, girl.
And when Dom
Yeah.
crashes at our house sometimes, he's gonna have to deal with a grandfather clock, a cuckoo clock, because we love the sound, but
No, it's like tick, tick, tick. And then it chimes on the quarter hour,
Yeah.
half hour, and
And
the 45 and the hour.
Yeah,
So,
just ask Dom.
oh, he knows.
Bernie's just like under the covers, and he's like,
I get 14 minutes of good sleep
Right.
like that.
it's
my,
like a
my internal clock as a drummer just knows exactly when it's going to happen. So I'm
He's
anticipating
just
it.
driving down the road and he goes, "Whoa, yeah, 11:15."
It gives new meaning to catnaps, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
right. And
So
I feel like you're a light sleeper.
The clocks wake me, though.
Speaking of Dom, when did Dom come into this project? Tell me about this collaboration. How you guys met?
Dom has been conscripted into the. He has been.
What year are you from?
He's from 1812, and
Okay.
as a sailor, he was press ganged into the project. And that's what started off the War of 1812. Is Dom's like, I don't want to play drums in this project. And I was like, you're playing drums in this project.
Didn't have a
Welcome to the
choice.
Navy, sir.
That's how it happened.
Yeah. Well, you can talk about it.
Well,
And
I
I'm
mean, so me and Ryan have played together longer than the three of us have played together. And like
accurate.
right as like guitar and drums. We also while we were stationed together in Washington, Meredith wasn't there most of the time, so we would jam. And then when you would come to visit, we'd get like little jam sessions going. But I think once you started your project here, it was like kind of the obvious choice at that point. You didn't know any other drummers. I was the best you were gonna get.
So
I
that was
didn't
it.
want any other drummer, Dom. There's a difference. Keep it in the family.
right.
La familia.
Yeah, that's kind of how it played out though. And here we are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dom and I started just for fun back in Washington State. We would play a lot of, I guess, folk kind of indie covers and just kind of have fun with it, usually over a couple drinks. And then kind of went from there to like the three of us kind of performed at a local homebrew place in Washington just for fun every now and then. And then, so it's kind of just always been, I think amongst the three of us, kind of always have had fun jamming. And then when Meredith started writing this project, it turned into, oh, we should probably help her out with this, and kind of turned real. So
And I've been super grateful to you both for helping me out with this because I know that at times it's not your chosen genre.
oh, I'm straight up like folk indie music,
yeah.
like finger plucking on an acoustic guitar, and she's like hands me an electric guitar. I'm like, what is this? And I'm not even a great electric guitar player, but I'm good enough.
You're awesome. You're awesome. And
I did like, what is a pick? I usually use my fingers, you know how it goes.
What is this hunk of plastic? Yeah.
but I mean, also Dom is who introduced me to a lot of my favorite artists. So Dom introduced me to Megadeth. Dom introduced me to Metallica.
So I'm not a metal drummer by any means. I grew up on listening to like my parents raised me on like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Metallica, some older metal, and I never like chose that as like my style of drumming per se. I'm more I would say my style falls more into like classic rock and grunge. Maybe I guess having been in a Rage Against the Machine cover band, I guess a little bit of hip hop as well with that. But yeah, like the style of playing with Meredith is different than that. But it's all music.
Yeah.
We got that plus her classical / and then indie and folk. It's just a weird
Right.
mix.
It's
going
a, it's a
on.
Well-
good mix though. And I think it's nice to bring what kind of bridge those genres together. You can take the rules from some and blend them into others, and
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one time you told me you were like, "Well, Meredith, you have to know the rules to know how to break the
Exactly right,
rules."
yeah.
And I was like, "That really resonates with me."
it's a good. That's something I learned. I think probably in college, where was surrounded by a bunch of college musicians, learning all of the rules, and the best art comes from breaking those
Right.
rules essentially.
Right,
You know,
and in
I look
breaking
at
them.
I look at David Bowie over there. He broke a lot of
100%.
rules. So and
Hendrix
Jimi Hendrix right there too. Right,
and Rocco, he's
Right.
always
He-
breaking
he
rules.
is
Oh,
Yeah.
Rocco.
currently breaking the rules.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's really interesting because one of the things that I'm always interested in as a musician, playing in bands and playing solo, when you're in a band situation on the creative side, you have an idea for something, right? What does it look like then in terms of how that comes to life? What's the collaborative effort? Do you kind of come out with, this is what I'm looking for the guitar to sound like, this is what I'm looking for the drums to sound like, or is it sort of, hey, here's a concept I have, and you all kind of put your little piece into it? Walk me through that a little bit about how that works with you guys.
Y'all want me to describe?
Go
I think
for
so.
it.
I think in this case, you're the one coming up with the concept of the music in this case, and then you pass it along, and then we do our thing.
And
It
she's
comes
getting
together.
better at guitar, like we were just talking about before. And I think initially it started off with her kind of when she first started playing. She's much better now, but when she first started playing, it was very much like her trying to get something out on the guitar. She knew the chords, but like the strumming pattern was needed some work. So I would just come in and be like, "You want me to play it for you?" And it just kind of started that way with me and her. And then Dom is always quick to just pick up things and make good parts and improvise on the spot.
So you don't necessarily have an idea in your mind of what you want that part to sound like from a drum perspective. You kind of say, "Hey, Dom, this is what we're doing," and he kind of comes up with.
I have a vague idea. So the one of the songs we were working on for this podcast, is called "The Yellow Butterfly," and it has a very militaristic feel to it. And so I think that's like the word I used when I
Yeah.
played the song originally for Dom, and was like, "Here's the chords, and here's how the melody goes." I want the drum part to have like this kind of marching
Yeah.
order to it. And so then he takes those vague words and creates something like that really works with the project. And then I give him like as much creative freedom as he wants, and I'm like, you go for it, you put in whatever you want. I trust your creative judgment. And Dom has a really great ear as a drummer and is able to really, what's the word? So he is able to take a song and give it just what it needs, and he doesn't go overboard, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely makes sense.
So if it needs a little fill here, he's like, okay, we're gonna put a little fill here, but we're not gonna overdo it.
Blast beats.
Yeah. It's
Art is about,
oftentimes
like take what you can take away from art to make it, as minimalistic and as possible. Just,
yeah, yeah.
portray exactly what you want without being ridiculous.
I was going to say it's oftentimes the space you leave versus the space you fill that creates texture and can do a lot. It's, yeah.
Yeah, we have a really good friend of ours who's an interior designer, among other things. But he says, what was it?
Negative space.
Negative space.
Yeah.
And it works in music too.
100%, 100%. Now, do you ever like if you're hearing something, Dom as a drummer, do you ever say, "Hey, Meredith, what if you did it this way?" Or what if you do you collaborate back
All
you
the
know,
time,
with
right?
Yeah. I think it's really
Yeah.
super healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've all written songs before too, so we kind of have like a in different genres, obviously, but I think it's healthy to kind of collaborate in that sense to bring different perspectives to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think like a good example is that Dom and I have been working on this cover that we developed of a song from 1916. The song's called "If You Were the Only Boy in the World," and it was written by a man named Nat Ayer for a musical. And it's this very nostalgic sounding song, and it's become like what we would consider a modern standard. So everybody's recorded it: Sinatra,
Yeah.
Dean Martin, Doris Day. Like everybody has done their take on it, and every take is very slow and romantic, and it has this kind of like old world nostalgia to it. And the song is very relevant to the project because it was commonly played on the record players, the Victrola at the time in World War One. So like on the front and at home, people would play this song and soldiers would listen to it, and they thought it was, very reminiscent of home, reminiscent of being in love, of having somebody special in your life. Things to take you away from the fact that you were currently in mortal peril,
Yeah.
right? And so Dom and I have been working on this, and we were like, well, what if we take this song that's very slow and romantic and make it into like almost a pop punk song? What if we speed it up to, what is it at, like 160?
I think that's what we settled on today was 160.
160 BPM and
It's moving.
all out, like we're fighting for our lives in this song, like and especially me, not Dom. Dom is relaxed. He's cool, calm, relaxed. I'm playing rhythm guitar and singing.
This is the one she's playing a new instrument on.
Yeah.
And I'm over here strumming, screaming, crying, throwing up, like
All at 160 BPM.
yeah, fighting for my life
Hanging onto the edge. Yeah.
in the trenches. The chords are weird, like because I took a song that was written for piano and took like the original sheet music for piano and was like, I need to put this in guitar chords in the sense that like every single word in the piano version, there's a new chord because it's like it's a piano, it's flowing, but
Right.
because I'm changing the structure of the song, I have to delete some chords and choose which ones to leave in. And I mean, I'm pretty sure Ryan's like sick of hearing this thing. Because
Great song.
It's been like 6 months of me like hammering away, being like, do I like this chord? Do I not like this chord?
Usually between like 9 p.m. and midnight. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a really
Give me
catchy
time.
song. Like, it's so catchy that like he's been walking around and singing it to our dogs. And
Normal thing in our household.
Yeah.
Take a normal song, put your dog's name in it, sing to them.
so one of our dogs' name is Gunter. And Gunter is a golden retriever mixed with an Australian shepherd. And he's a big goofy boy. He only got the one brain cell.
But he's in that one brain cell is just being a good boy.
Yeah, you got the right brain cell, right?
It was not the Australian Shepherd brain cell. It was the Golden Retriever brain cell.
He's the only boy in the world.
No. All we can do is pray for him. Yeah, and so like that song, Dom and I have been working very hard on that, and that's been one where Dom has really put in a lot of thought because there's some interesting kind of stops and starts to it. And that's been very difficult for me to make sure that I am completely in sync with him when we're doing that. And so Dom has put in a lot of feedback about like, I think you should play this chord once and then rest while I'm doing a fill because I don't think we will ever be quite as minutely together and it's going to sound weird. So to answer the question that was on the table, like, yeah, Dom has really helped me with the structure of music. And Ryan too. Ryan is not afraid to tell me, like, Meredith, that's kind of rough.
Well, she does that for me, and I do that for her. So we both write our own stuff. So Meredith will come in and be like, "Nah, not it." So I'm like, "Okay, moving on. Scratch that."
Well, I mean, that's like living in a creative household,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, I love the fact that I'm in our house and I'm like, I'm like taking a shower and I'm like, oh, Ryan's working on that song. It's coming along nice. Like, maybe I would like add a little more of reverb to this, and vice versa with my stuff. Ryan's like playing video games and he's like, I kind of like that song. I kind of like where you're
Well,
going
and
with
it kind
the
of
lyrics.
loops back to the very beginning of this conversation, right? Not being so married to your idea. Because it can be, look, we've all been in bands before where, like, man, don't step on my shit. You're the drummer, you just hit those things and don't tell me about the guitar. And those aren't good environments to be in. And when you can be in an environment where everyone feels comfortable to say, that part you're playing, what if you tried this instead? It's not a criticism of what you're doing. It's just another idea of how it could. And you might try it, and it might be total ass, but it also might be really good, right? And if you don't squelch that, that's when the cool stuff comes out. So I'm really impressed that you guys can work together that way because a lot of people can't.
And I think this stems back from the fact that we all played together kind of the last 8 years, kind of coming up together. We had our little joking band we called the Spooky Mountain Quartet. Spooky part being who's the fourth member. But we had a lot of fun that way. So I think we all kind of learned to kind of give each other feedback and kind of grow musically together. And I mean, we all them more so than I, but we all kind of came back from, I guess, good musical backgrounds and then came up that way. And then so we give each other good feedback and kind of listen to each other. We're all really receptive, and no one's trying to be the frontman personality. Some of the most famous bands we know, the person who just wants to control everything, that usually ends up tearing bands apart. So
I object to the notion that you don't have a good musical background.
well, what I mean is classically musically trained. Down went to college. I stopped at high school. I was a trumpet player, so I stopped at high school and didn't go to college for it and that kind of stuff. So I've always played music, but that's what I meant.
But you were in a relatively successful local band in Yuma, which Ryan's from Yuma, Arizona. That's where he grew up on the border. And Ryan was in, I didn't know him at this time, so this is all my secondhand information. Plus watching the YouTube videos, which are still very much on YouTube.
Pretty bad
From,
quality videos, yeah.
From 2010 of him.
Someone's like flip phone.
Yeah, performing in a coffee shop. And he was in this band that was pretty much like the local coffee shop band.
Yeah.
And they were awesome. Like, especially for a high school band, like they were doing some complex stuff, like Decemberists kind of stuff, like things with a lot of
Simon
moving,
and Garfunkel.
a lot of moving parts.
We were.
I think that's just as valid as having a classical background.
I think we were all kind of choir nerds. Kind of got together, and so all four of us sang. So it was kind of a fun, like, 4-piece. We would all kind of chime into songs, get a lot of good harmonies going. Cap That Wombat was the name.
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, I think music has always been a part of all three of our backgrounds. So I think that kind of makes you a little more receptive and a little bit more willing to continue to grow, like you were saying.
I've never really thought about it this way until now, but like your less strict musical background with your very strict musical background, I feel like I kind of we have like I bridge the gap between that to kind of translate between both.
Good point.
Band nerd.
Maybe,
I mean,
or
with a
maybe-
Every
name
band
like
needs
with
to.
a name like Dom,
Right.
you know, I think that's just perfect. Actually,
We have all kinds of great nicknames for him. So,
I can imagine.
Do we?
um,
Oh, no.
I haven't heard these.
well, yes, you have Dominic DeCoco
Oh yes,
from
yes.
Inglorious Bastards.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I speak third most Italian.
I
I love that one.
Third most time.
we also have Dom Perignon.
Oh.
Fancy Dom.
Yep, that's fancy Dom.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could also do that for that. Yeah.
And that's about it.
The only,
All
okay,
two.
I have heard these ones before. So.
So what's next? What are you guys looking to accomplish with this project? Short term, medium term?
That's a good question. So, I'm still developing a lot of the songs. So we're gonna like start really working together on the songs. This might be news to y'all, but that's what's gonna happen.
She's the only one that can answer this question.
And so I'm working on these songs, and it's supposed to be a full concept album.
Right.
And my long-term goal is to start performing it locally. I think, and in a relaxed way. So now we're not gonna be like grinding out like a show every week or 2 weeks. It'd probably
Yeah.
be like a show every 1 to 2 months because we all have full-time jobs, and like this one would have to bring a drum kit, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and
That's a drummer's problem. That's not your problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll write everything on the cajon.
his,
There you go.
his problems are my problems.
You have the SUV. So
For now.
That's true. So kind of relaxed, and then I think the most immediate show we will have is that in May, Ryan's sister started a creative nonprofit up in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, which is where she lives. And it is this really cool organization that she's building to try and build a community for artists in her area, and artists of all kinds. So, could be visual, could be musicians, etc., dancers. And she's putting on like a mini festival and having like a few musicians come and perform. So she asked us because she was like, we're doing something kind of cool,
Yeah.
and kind of different, So we're going to be playing up there. The organization's called The Grove. It's meant to promote the arts in that area. And so we feel very strongly about that, of course. And we're like, any way we can help you achieve that and kind of try and foster some community where you are, we're going to do it. So
Awesome.
I don't know if I told you about that. Did I tell you about
No,
that?
we told him, yeah.
Okay.
I was tracking.
Yeah. Surprise.
You get grandfathered into everything,
Yeah.
Dom.
You're going whether you like it or not.
Yeah, you're-
and
I'm
there will
just
be a
happy to be
grandfather
invited.
clock there.
But I think one of the things that you and I have both discussed is that doing this for creativity and doing this for fun, not so much like I need to get my name recognized,
Yeah.
right? It's more so, hey, we're having fun out here. We're doing what we want to do, and if people like it, people like it. If they don't, they don't. I'm sure you're going to scratch someone's itch in their brain with the music you're writing, and that's the people you want listening to you, anyways.
Yeah, and that's like a conversation that like you have to have with yourself if you're gonna do a project like this.
Yeah.
If you're gonna write a World War I alternative rock project, you gotta have a serious sit down with yourself and be like, listen, this is never gonna be top of the charts. This is never gonna win a Grammy, and that's beautiful and that's wonderful because you're always gonna be motivated by the art itself,
Yeah.
and not by the marketability. Because if you want to be an artist who's going to be successful like that, then you're going to have to do the opposite and say, like, I might not be able to make the stuff I want to make. And, like, I very much don't care if anybody ever listens to it. I have, like, 5 very loyal fans who have reached out and have been like, man, this is some cool stuff. This is a deep cut. Like, I love this. One of them is named Alan Hartley. And he was like the very first person to reach out to me. And he's actually local in Charleston. And I don't know how he found me, but he was like, this is so cool. And it's local. It's like local nerd rock. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, you get it. Like, so, and those kinds of very small interactions are so heartwarming.
When you think about it, though, that's really, if you can come from a place of purity and authenticity, that's the most important thing. And if you look at music over time, a lot of artists that came out that we now know as groundbreaking artists went through that same process. They weren't looking to become famous. They weren't writing for somebody. They were doing it only for themselves. And then all of a sudden, it spawned a new genre, a new sound. You think of bands like Rush, for example, from Canada. Their second album, I mean, the record company just didn't give a shit. They're like, you guys are awful. We hate you. We want nothing to do with you. So their third album, I think it was their third album, they literally said, we're just going to do whatever the fuck we want because we love it. And then they took off, right? And they weren't doing it to take off. They were doing it because they loved each other. They were great friends. They loved what they were doing. And they did really weird, challenging prog rock. And of course, now you look at them and go, oh, everyone knows Rush. You may not like
The
them, but
holy
everyone knows them.
trio.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something really lovely about that, and I'm really glad. Again, part of the connection I had, right away with you, and I knew you guys would be the same because if you're with Meredith, you got to be. That you got that feel right away of authenticity and honesty, and I'm impressed by it. Very impressed by it.
Wow, thank you. That's like the nicest thing I've heard in a long time.
Well, you should hear it more. Now, is there a place where people can find you now? Like, if people tell us where people can find you or any of your music and.
So 2 songs are on like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, everywhere you can stream music.
Okay.
The one that we are gonna play, one of them that we're gonna play today, is not out yet, but we're working on recording that ourselves. Is exciting.
Awesome.
So that one will be out probably I'm hoping the next month or so.
Perfect. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, because we all work full time, like we kind of have to piecemeal upload things, which is kind of fun. I think instead of like dropping a whole album at once.
A lot of big name musicians are doing that more so.
Oh,
They're-
more and
they're
more, yeah.
dropping singles
Yeah.
instead of a full record. So
Yeah, just like putting it out, a little bit of, little
Just,
breadcrumbs every now and then.
We're following the modern music trend.
There you go.
Look at us.
Yeah, see, on top of working full-time jobs, we're gonna learn how to record music.
Yeah.
So bear with us as we release more for. But you gonna tell them where to find you? Just
What do you mean
Spotify?
where?
Under your name?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just
Okay.
Spotify. You can search
Yeah.
Spotify.
All of Spotify.
Yeah, just find me.
Well, the project name is Dame Mary Death, which is a name that Ryan came up with as a joke. And then I was like, that's kind of hardcore. I
Yeah.
kind of love that. And also has a meaning because I've played a lot of funerals in my lifetime.
Really?
Yeah, and that's kind of like a joke and also serious is that like everybody is like, can you play violin at my funeral? And I'm like, yeah, I could do that for you. So that's kind of like the underlying joke is that like I've played like a ton of funerals and 0 weddings.
It's a
My
it's a
daughter.
different movie.
So you need to meet my daughter at some point because you would play at her wedding. You and her are like totally simpatico in terms of sort of your mindsets and you would love her.
We could change this. We get a happy tune to this.
That's the only wedding I would play.
Yeah. And it would
I don't-
all be like dark metal, cool, deep. Like
She gets World War One music.
exactly.
She gets music about the innate suffering of the human condition.
There you go.
Mixed with a little bit of Spanish flu.
Right? That'd be so
Super spreader
nice.
event.
So what I think is most cool about today is that our audience can hear this song here.
Oh yeah,
first.
absolutely.
Very
Yes, exclusive.
special.
Yeah.
Sneak peek.
World
Very
premiere.
special. We knew you when,
That's right.
right?
It's funny.
Or we met you when, or
Right?
something like that.
But yeah, that's the origin of the
Very
name.
exciting.
It's basically like played a lot of funerals, mainly a Shokin Farewell from Ken Burns' The Civil War.
Mhm.
Classic.
That's the #1 requested funeral song. So yeah. I feel like I should put an ad out in Charleston, like take out a billboard that's like need a funeral violinist. Call me.
It's a really happy photo.
Yeah.
Discounted rates.
You can have it next one of those billboards for one of those lawyers on like 526 or on 26. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
except
the
everybody will be
injury
dying
lawyer?
to see you.
Yeah.
yeah, they're dying. Right, Lisa?
She's ready.
Oh my
Splendid.
gosh. Right?
We
She's-
could really. That's
Right.
podcast 3.0.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a niche
Yeah.
industry, and I'm happy to chart those waters.
All right.
And I'm ready to be the person to
Heard that here first too.
I did.
Yeah.
And she's your marketing girl right there.
play
Yeah.
a funeral. And also, I mean, I love Magnolia Cemetery. You've ever been over there?
I haven't. No.
Oh my gosh, such a
Is that a
beautiful.
date night?
It-
Sounds like it.
It
Yeah.
might sound like a joke, but it's
No,
actually
no,
date nights.
Actually, we're kind of nerdy too, so we might maybe
Yeah.
the four of us.
Yes.
Or-
Oh my gosh.
No, the
You could-
five of
Double
us.
date plus
Actually,
Dom.
Dom.
We got-
no
we-
offense, Dom.
I'll be the fifth wheel.
Dom will be there. Yeah.
No.
It's
Dom and Rocco.
so lovely.
Yeah.
I'll
We can
gladly-
make it
I'll walk-
6,
I'll walk
Dom and
around.
Rocco.
But the beautiful thing about that cemetery is it's extremely old, extremely well maintained, and you can walk around in there for hours
Yeah.
because it's like almost like a hike.
It's so
Like
historical.
yeah,
It's a
Yeah.
gorgeous cemetery too, up on the water and everything. It's very pretty.
you can see some great birds there. We have a friend who is a real bird nerd. He's actually like ranked in the stats as the #1 birder for Magnolia Cemetery.
Wow. That's an obscure stat.
I can't wait to
He has
send
it on
this
a
to
business
him.
card.
I was #2 till last year, and I finally made it to #1.
Yeah, so he's
Dream big.
Burger number 1.
I can't wait to send this to him because I can't wait to be like, I exposed you.
Well,
on,
you got to mention his name now. Who's the #1 birder at Magnolia Cemetery?
is this the camera?
That's one.
Justin Moffat.
Actually, meeting up with him for drinks after this, so that'll be interesting.
Awesome.
Gotta let him know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The
So
question is, can Justin do bird calls?
I don't think he can.
Oh.
I think he could do it.
I
you know,
believe in him.
I think Justin. I think you can do it.
Maybe
That's our challenge to him.
Maybe he could. I do know that he is a very intelligent lawyer. So,
Okay.
Bird law.
and that's like, yeah, and that's what we have in common is that we're both attorneys and love cemeteries.
Amazing.
That's it.
Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming in. It's really there's so much more we can talk about. There will be a 2.0. There'll be a 3.0. There's a lot to dig into.
This is
here.
fantastic.
Thank you for having us.
But I
This was
really
a good
Yeah,
want
time.
thank
I
you.
really want to hear some music now because I'm so like built up to hear
There's
what
so
this
much
is all
energy
about.
in this room. It's not even funny.
I know, huh?
Yeah.
We live for
It's-
that
we're,
shit.
We do.
Yep.
We're about energy. Yes, so
Time to
important,
unleash the
isn't it?
zoomies.
Exactly. Time
Careful
to
what you
run,
wish
run
for.
around
Right
New
now.
Realm.
Rocco's ready.
Rocco he was born ready.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
As soon as we all start standing up, you watch.
That's
The
awesome.
Rocco zoomies are coming.
I can see him twitching. He's like,
Oh yeah.
He's biding his time over
he's-
there.
Oh
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
yeah, he's literally
Fighting
like
his
the intro to Ace of Spades by Motorhead, where it's just like,
Oh, yeah.
He's a good boy.
Sporadic hot for teacher drumming.
Oh, there you go. All right, let's play some music.
awesome.
Do it.
Do this.
Sometime when I felt that I'm things afloat, I wish a pal I had, say one like you. Someone within my heart to build a throne. Someone who'll never part to call my own. If you were the only boy in the world and I was the only girl, oh, nothing else would matter in the world today, and we would go on loving in the same old way. A garden of Eden just made for two, with nothing to mar our joy. Oh, I would say such wonderful things to you. There would be such wonderful things to do. If you were the only boy in the world, and I was the only girl.
Thank you for watching Open Mic with Groove Kitty. We hope you enjoyed the episode. This podcast is for you, so please make sure you share, like, follow, and subscribe. When you do, it increases our exposure on every platform. This, in turn, helps to promote our guests. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. Thanks again. We'll see you all again soon.